Old creep stalks 18-year-old. I was 18 and I was working my first ever job as a cashier. I had been there almost 6 months and was really hoping for a promotion sometime soon. We were a resale shop, so as long as I had another cashier working, I helped out my other co-workers with stocking and cleaning. When I was on the floor, a customer approached me. Nothing odd at first. Usually people only ask for help. That's what I'm here for. He comes up and goes, "Hi Jennifer." "Hi, can I help you?" "Do you remember me? I bought those cups last week." No, I didn't actually remember him, but I wanted to be polite, and silly me thought, he's just an old man. What's the worst he could do? "Sure, I hope you're enjoying them. Is there anything you're trying to find?" He shakes his head, no, and just kind of stands there. "Okay, well, if you need anything, let me know." So I start to walk away, but he starts walking behind me. Not far either. He was so close, I could feel his body heat. After a minute of this, I turned and said, "Are you sure there isn't something you need?" He pulls out a little slip of paper that looks like it would fit inside a fortune cookie and sets it on the shelf and slides it to me. "Do you have a boyfriend?" Surprised and shocked, I said no. I had a girlfriend, but didn't think to say it just because of how surprised I was. "Well, let me take you fishing sometime." And the paper had his name, Kevin, on it, alongside his phone number. "Take it," he said. So I did, and ran into the employee back of the store and told my manager immediately. We concluded that he probably wouldn't come back because I wasn't going to call him. We were wrong. He came back and tried giving me his phone number multiple times. Each time I saw him, I spoke to him less and less, or went into the employees only rooms. All of my managers were very supportive, except one who thought I was overreacting whenever I told him about him coming back, asking me out, and giving me his number. He would say things like, "He's a regular," or "he just wants his senior discounts," despite the fact he would only buy his stuff at my register. I came off my lunch break once, and he had just finished being checked out, and was almost at the door when he saw me. We had a line wrapping around the store, and he stood next to my register for 1 hour, staring at me until all the customers went away. He stood there and pulled out his number yet again. I was so stressed, I just screamed, "Stop giving me your number, you're too old to be doing this." I broke down, and he ran out of the store. I was tired of him waiting, always asking. He had started going into the employees only part of the store, and my co-workers who closed said he had waited for me more than once in the parking lot and wrote down his plate numbers. After I screamed and broke down, I thought he finally went away. He had shown up every day for 2 weeks before then. But when I screamed, he stopped coming by for 1 week. The night he came back, my heart sunk into my chest. He came up and said, "I gave you some space, I've noticed." After some silence, he pulls out his wallet. "Are you sure you don't want to go out with me?" "Yes." So he paid for his things and put his wallet back into his pocket. Then he paused and said he wanted to buy something else, so I ring it up, and this time he pulls out a pocket knife and puts it on the counter. He glares and says, "Now, are you sure you don't want to go out with me?" Scared, I take a step away and go, "Yes, I'm sure." He sighed and pulled out his wallet, paid, put it away, and the knife, then stomps out the store. I had a complete and total panic attack during the confrontation. A co-worker who saw but didn't like me pointed and laughed when I mouthed help. I stormed back there and screamed, "He had a knife! He had a knife!" I had to get calmed down as I yelled at her about how I could have been seriously hurt. I turned to my manager and tell him about what just happened, and then as soon as I got off, I called my mom and went straight to the sheriff's station. We filed a report about what happened that night and everything leading up to it. After a few days, I find out that they went down to where he lived and gave him a firm warning to stop. I was sad they didn't arrest him, but he stopped. They had to drive there 3 towns over because his living current address was 40 minutes away. He had been making daily trips to see me. Also, his wife was very unhappy to find out what he was doing. That's right, he was married on top of all of that. I ended up quitting shortly after, scared he would come back, but I was happy that it had all finally been taken care of. That's about it though, scary and kind of long, but I hope you find my rather traumatizing story at least interesting. Creep at the store. I was at the local grocery store I visit weekly to shop for food. I normally spend $100 to $200 a week on food for myself and my family, so I always leave with a full cart. I'm standing in the checkout line, minding my own business, when a tall man, I'd guess in his early 40s, approached me and complimented my hair. "Your hair is gorgeous," loud enough for everyone within a 20-foot radius to hear. Now, I appreciate a compliment as much as the next girl, but it was a little obnoxious to say the least. I thanked him politely and redirected my attention to my cart, where I awkwardly started organizing the items in hopes that the 15 pairs of eyes now staring in my direction would look elsewhere. Unfortunately, Loudmouth didn't take the hint. He started firing questions and statements, barely pausing for me to get a word end edgewise before the next sentence would spill out of his mouth. This is when it gets really awkward, as if it wasn't weird enough. He asks if I want to go out with him sometime, maybe tonight, after I put my groceries away. He could come to my house and help me put groceries away, and then we could leave from there. I told him I didn't think my husband would appreciate that, and he got angry. I was freaked out at this point, and everyone was still staring. After I rejected his offer, his mood changed so fast. It was like a light switch got flipped and the compliments turned into nasty insults and curses. Mind you, this guy didn't have a cart or anything in his hand to buy. He was kind of standing off to the side, kind of leaning on one of the drink refrigerator displays. Thankfully, a gentleman who was in an aisle within my sight, who presumably heard the whole thing, came up behind us and asked him if he was in line. Loudmouth said no. The gentleman promptly told him he was being inappropriate, loud, and needed to buzz off. To my surprise, Loudmouth stepped aside and with one final insult stomped out of the store. I thanked the gentleman and we continued waiting in line, me with an entire week of groceries and him with one bottle of drink. I offered to let him go in front of me, and he declined, saying that he wasn't in a rush. It was really like one of those scenes in a movie where the nice tough guy saves the girl from the jackass. Even so, I was afraid Loudmouth would be waiting outside, so I asked the cashier to call one of her co-workers and walk me to my car. The gentleman insisted that he would be happy to escort me to my car, and I accepted. But as I stood there, watching the cashier ring my items, I was overcome by this sick feeling like I was going to vomit everywhere. I decided it was just my nerves, as I have issues with anxiety, and this reaction is quite normal. It typically passes within a few minutes once I mentally talk myself down. But for fear of further embarrassment, this time in the form of projectile vomiting in the middle of the grocery store, I hurriedly paid and took a seat on a bench close by. I told the gentleman never mind, and that I was a little freaked out, so I was going to call my husband to come pick me up instead. We'd get the car later, I didn't care. I just wanted to make it home in one piece. He told me to have a nice day and walked out the door. Hand to God, as soon as he walked out of the building, I felt normal again. So, still blaming my anxiety, I felt sort of silly, but I'd already called my husband, so I stood up and pushed my cart over to the window to watch for my ride, just in time to see a junky white SUV drive by with freaking weight, gentleman in the passenger seat and Loudmouth in the driver's seat. I was about to crap myself. My creepy flatmate. I moved into a guy's apartment with him, with the aim of staying for 2 or 3 months to save up some money. He offered to let me stay for reduced rent after we met and I saw the flat. Over time, his messages increased in frequency and he pestered me every day. He has gone beyond the normal behavior of a normal landlord flatmate by giving me his room, reduced rent, and offering to buy me anything for the room. Less than a week after meeting him and seeing the flat, he sent me plans to my place of work, which I only divulged after repeated questioning. I told him on that day that it made me feel uncomfortable. There have been numerous small incidents that have given me cause for concern, from obsessive messaging to always wanting to help, admitting that he fancied me, telling me that he cried all day the day after meeting me, sort of following me around the kitchen as I made tea, calling out through my closed bedroom door first thing in the morning, not taking no for an answer when offering me lifts to work, and asking of favors very late at night, such as to put eye drops in his eyes, writing me Easter cards and signing it with love. He fabricates reasons to leave his room and be around me in the flat. Following his behavior, I told him that I would move out at the end of the month, but I did not tell him exactly why. The next day, he left me a gift box. Inside were 3 small red scented candles, 3 red tulips, a box of aftershave with a ribbon on it, and a card. The card consisted of 3 handwritten pages, informing me that he was in love with me and that he would like to take me out on dates to get to know each other. He enclosed an invitation card that he wanted me to respond in writing and leave it for him by the next evening. He also said in the card that if I did not feel the same way, it would be the biggest disappointment of his life. The next day, I decided to walk to work, and he implored me not to make things awkward. This felt manipulative, as I had not mentioned the box or the card, and he was placing the blame for his embarrassment on me. I have not expressed any romantic interest in him, or much as a friend either. I moved in on the understanding that he would help us both financially and for him to have some company. For context, we are both gay men, I should have mentioned. However, his background, if true, makes me think that he is genuinely looking for a confidant or a friend. However, I was not expecting to be told that he is in love with me, and for him to use coercive language. The rent is not free, but it was half of what I was paying before, and half of what he could reasonably charge someone. He also told me that he let an old student of his stay when they needed help. He did not elaborate, though. I am concerned about escalation of gift buying, pestering, and how awkward it would make me living there, but since I only moved in 2 weeks ago, it feels like a bit of a failure to leave so soon, and I can't quite make a decision. The YouTube creep. This is from 5 or 6 years ago. I am 24 and live in the Midwest, and I love anime and manga. I was really interested in heading to a con, so 2 of my girlfriends decided to go with me to one of the larger ones in the area. We arrived, and at first it was a lot of fun. However, I soon met a man who was overly creepy and made my time unbearable. I can't reveal too much about it, but he was apparently a guest to this convention and has some sort of a YouTube career. He doesn't even talk about anime or manga, so I thought his presence at the con was weird. I would have said something long ago, but the group he was part of has a rabid fanbase that in the past defended an abuser, so I have been fearful of the repercussions of telling my story. I was walking the convention when he spotted me, and he instantly seemed to light up and rush over to me. I was very nervous. I never thought I was much to look at, so his interest seemed strange to me. He tried to make some small talk, like asking if I like to cosplay. I am sort of round, but I am very proud of my legs, so I jokingly said if I cosplayed, I could probably be the green M&M. He seemed to really like that idea, and kept pressing. The way he looked and leered made me very uncomfortable. I made an excuse and joined my friends, and walked away from the creep in the tiny hat. I wished that was the end, but throughout the 3 days he would continually try to find me and talk to me. What made it worse was the fact that he had his girlfriend at the time with him. She seemed busy, and he tried to sneak off while she was busy with other things to try and flirt with me. But it always felt very uncomfortable. In fact, I tried to bring her up, saying wouldn't she be upset that he was flirting with me? And he said he could convince his girlfriend to be okay with it, and then called her ladyboy, which I found weird. The whole situation felt so disgusting, and every time he found me and rushed over to talk, I felt like I wanted to crawl into a hole and die. Maybe this isn't stalking per se, but he made me feel so uncomfortable I had to say something. After this convention, I looked him up and found out he goes to the 3 major conventions in my area. So for my own peace of mind, I don't go to them anymore. My creepy neighbour. I am 21. I live in an apartment complex, and for the past couple of weeks there has been a much older woman in her 40s that waits outside of my parking spot to bum cigarettes off of me. She lives on the complete opposite side of the far end of the hall than I do. I notice that she has learned my schedule and knows exactly when I'll be outside, walking my dog, leaving for work, or when I go to the gym. She's definitely crazy. She has told me that God sent her to tell me that I was going to die from a heart attack, and told me to stop eating certain foods. She tells me that she is part of a chosen race of people. It sort of scares the crap out of me. I decided to stop walking my dog during the day, just so I wouldn't see her as often. What made me want to post this was that I went to walk my dog at 3 a.m. last night, and sure enough, I see her trying to sneak out of her apartment door to meet me outside. It makes me question if she listens at my door or watches me somehow. It all started with just a "can I borrow a cigarette?" to "I knew God was going to send someone to take care of me. I just can't do it anymore." The paedo creep. Me and my friends were followed back when I was 11. From the age of 10 to 17, I lived in a house by a creek in a small town's downtown area. There were multiple parks by my house, 2 actual playgrounds, and one that was a pond. It had a creek, a bridge, and a path that connected to the end of my street. The bridge led to one of the playgrounds. The playground was also closed off for remodeling and was completely under construction. It was my 11th birthday. I didn't have a lot of friends and hadn't started middle school yet. It was June. I had a Hawaii-themed party in my yard. I invited my neighbor friend, who was 2 years younger than me, and a girl I knew in elementary school. The elementary school girl showed up really late, by the way. We all wore our bathing suits and these cheap, colorful hula skirts from the party city. After playing in the sprinkler, we got permission to go to the creek and go to the playground. So we walked and played and just had fun. Once we got to the park, We saw it was closed off, with construction tape and everything. A brick wall was also demolished, and in a pile of rubble. The only thing left was one of the picnic tables and the gazebo. The weird thing was, the picnic table had a man sitting at it. He was a fatter man, older, probably 30 or 40. He was wearing a white t-shirt and was eating McDonald's. We didn't think anything of it, but all three of us for sure saw him there and what he looked like, considering he was the only person in the park, so we decided to walk back home. As we started walking back to the path, I noticed that the man had gotten up from the table and was watching us. But when he saw me looking at him, he turned away. We kept walking, and about a minute later, I looked back and saw him about 10 feet away, also walking in our direction. Again, when he saw me look at him, he kind of wandered away a couple of feet. I alerted my friends, and we started to get worried, so we jogged ahead for a little bit and hid behind a couple of trees to see if he would start walking the same way again. And sure enough, he did. He looked like he was looking for something or someone. We popped back out of the trees and started running. We were in the middle of the park. On the path, we had a little while to go until we were at my house. I turned my head and saw that he was running after us now, making it incredibly obvious that he was looking for us. We managed to get through the park, most of the way down my street, and started yelling for my mom and dad. By the time I looked back, he was turning around and walking back to the path. We got to the house and inside and told him what happened. My dad and my neighbor's dad went out looking for the guy. I don't know what happened to him, but I do know that they found him.